Okay, call to order, councillors. It is now 4:30. So good afternoon, everyone. Before we commence our public forum, can you please check that all your phones and devices are turned to silent? So welcome everyone to public forum this afternoon. Public forum relates to representations on the agenda item matters for the extraordinary meeting of council to be held tomorrow afternoon in chambers at 2 o'clock as per the deferral of our November meeting due to the fire emergency. As our code of meeting practice includes live streaming, I need to inform all present that your attendance at this meeting is taken as consent to the possibility that your image and or voice may be recorded and broadcast public via our live stream. General Manager, do you just want to outline the references for public forum speakers?
Turn it on so you can hear up the back. Public forum speakers each have 5 minutes. There are no extensions of time. The councillors can at the end of that time ask questions, and any question, obviously the speaker has the choice of whether they do or don't answer that, and there is up to 1 minute to actually reply to each question. It's important that the speakers maintain their presentation on the actual topic that the council report is about and the subject matter of the council report, and also obviously that they refrain from any derogatory language towards any members of our community, council laws, council staff, etc. That is done in a respectful manner. Anyone who is seen as stepping over that will be reminded of the requirements by the Mayor. If they continue to do that, they'll be asked to sit down and their time will cease to be able to be presented. That's it.
Thank you, General Manager. We have two public forum speakers this afternoon. The first one will be Dick Pearson from the Kempsey Residents Association Inc. He'll be speaking for item 9.3 on community engagement strategy, and Dr. Nona Harvey speaking on item 10.2, the community sustainability reference group. And we'll have Mr. Pearson first. Thank you.
Is that on? That's on. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Just clarify one point to start with. Kempsey Shire Residents Association, so it's Shire-wide. It's just not Kempsey alone. Thanks for the opportunity to talk. I basically just want to endorse the community engagement policy and strategy as has been on public exhibition and now put to council. I've had some minor exposure in my career to the IAP2 model, and it certainly is a best practice. Collaboration is far better than confrontation, so if proper and heartfelt engagement in its various forms is conducted earlier in the piece, in hindsight, on both sides of the fence, if you like, that would have saved a heck of a lot of anxiety and confrontation and antagonism. So that's why I'm particularly over the moon about seeing this come to fruition in council. What's been put before you by your staff is more than just a policy and strategy. First up, it's a profession, and it needs to be regarded as such in the same professional capacity as your engineers and accountants and auditors and all the rest of it. Some might even say it borders on an art form. The main thing I draw your attention to are the principles. It really does start at the top. It starts with councillors and executive management to really take a good look at the principles involved and not just must walk the talk and not just treat engagement as a ticker box. I don't want to end up breaching code of meeting practice, but I think it's self-evident. There's been some examples in the past about, with a fair degree of pushback in some areas of council about engaging or consulting, which is the broad term that people use. Just a couple of missing steps or things that I think should be included in the strategy and policy. First up, a quick risk assessment when you've got a new project, particularly a significant one. Is it likely to cause any angst within the community? take about 30 seconds through the brain box. State the level of engagement up front, whether it's just to inform, consult, involve or collaborate. We won't get to empower, that's an unrealistic objective, but if we can get to involve and perhaps collaborate on some of the big issues, all the better. Be prepared to change the level of engagement. Provide feedback once engagement had been conducted. Get back to people and let them know what was adopted and what wasn't adopted and why it wasn't adopted. That is often one of the things that causes a bit of angst. With regard to techniques, I'd suggest that you don't over-control the process or the techniques that are outlined in the strategy. Facilitated workshops have their place, but sometimes a Q&A open forum, although it might be a bit of a risk, it could certainly be worthwhile tacking onto any workshops. If you engage early, the rabble may not be as bad as you think down the track. So myself and the association look forward to a new era in meaningful engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pearson. There's no lights on, so you've covered it all. Thank you very much. We will now have our second speaker, which is Dr. Nona Harvey, speaking on item 10.2. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors. And thanks for this opportunity to speak to Council in support of Councillor Morris's item 10.2 on the agenda. My name is Nona Harvey and I speak on behalf of the Macleay Living Sustainably group. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the immediate impact of the current bushfire catastrophe that's affecting everyone in one way or another, from people who've lost homes, livelihoods or loved ones. People struggling to breathe the air thick with smoke and dust, to the people in the RFS performing heroic acts day in and day out as we speak. Also, as a fauna rescuer, I'm only too aware of our wildlife suffering. Today I've had 4 call-outs and this is becoming the new normal. Yet summer has not even begun, with water shortages expected to get worse and no rain to be hoped for till well into the new year. While I realise Council is preoccupied with these catastrophes, as we all are, I'm here to urge you to pass Councillor Morris's motion at the meeting tomorrow. It's a modest and reasonable step towards actioning a series of resolutions that Council has adopted over the past 2 years, in particular the suite of policies, strategies and action plans that have to do with reducing our carbon footprint, such as mitigating climate change through reducing emissions, boosting renewables and reducing waste. The fire events throughout our state and across other states are unprecedented in scale and ferocity. They are the results of years of drought through lack of rain and higher temperatures. This drying up of land and rivers has been exacerbated by global warming and deforestation. The whole phenomenon is part of a trend which has been predicted by scientists for the past 40 years and is now playing out before our horrified eyes. Thus, unfortunately, this is not a one-off event, and we can expect such events to increase in frequency and severity. To the argument that whatever Australia does to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is irrelevant or negligible, since we only contribute 1.3% of global emissions, I'd make 3 brief points. Firstly, as the second largest exporter of coal and gas, we actually contribute 3.6% to global emissions when these exports are factored in. And even though our country has 0.3% of the world's population, we are one of the highest per capita emitters in the world. Secondly, as one of the driest continents in the world, we are particularly vulnerable to the impact of accelerated climate change, the likes of which we're currently experiencing. In January this year, 91 of the 100 hottest places in the world were in Australia. Thirdly, it's the cumulative effect of all efforts to reduce emissions at local, state, national and international levels which will make the difference in the end. By the same token, the action the cost of inaction is huge, and I could just refuse to the a reference in the local government New South Wales conference recently. The research by Melbourne University goes into detail. Now, Australia has a proud tradition of punching above its weight. Think back to the World Wars. Though our contribution to the total forces in World War II was only 1.3%, the impact we made is legendary still. We could take a proud place on the world stage again, as our tiny neighbour New Zealand has done recently, and play a significant role in helping turn this juggernaut around. I believe local government has a key role to play in the nationwide effort to reduce emissions, and that this is the ideal time for Council to put in place policy strategies and action plans to develop a more sustainable and resilient practices. Now, when we're united by the lived experience of a major natural disaster, Council can offer a way forward to the community, working together and following the footsteps of many other councils in our region. Appointing a full-time sustainability project officer who works closely with an inclusive community sustainability reference group, as recommended in this motion, would be a great start. As the film 2040 screening this Friday demonstrates, there is a whole new world of practical things that can be done and are already being done to both help stabilise the climate and open up huge new opportunities for jobs and growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have one question. I'll take Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Nona, for your passionate presentation. Would you agree, I agree with you that it's an enormous problem, but would you agree that given the magnitude of the problems we're facing, we really do need a paradigm shift, which requires state and federal governments to come in and help us change the way we treat with our water, with our forests. You know, we really do need to change the whole way we've been quite reckless. My question was, don't you agree that we need the state and federal governments to come in?
Well, that's what I say, that really the only way we can do it is working on all levels, and I include individuals here. Every individual needs to take responsibility for, you know, things like managing their waste. You know, it's a huge problem that I know Council is working on that level. Every level we need to work on, and local, state and federal government level, but also, of course, on the international level. It does have to happen all. And I think, you know, I don't know about a paradigm shift. I haven't gone into that, but I just think it needs everybody on all levels of government and individuals working together, because this is an emergency situation.
Councillor Hawthorne.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation, Nona. The issue of water conservation, I presume you can see that the more water we conserve, the less cost to the council to produce things. But it will affect the bottom line if a lot of people use less water. Can you see the issues that the council will have if we reduce water consumption so much that our financial situation providing water will be affected?
Well, many regional towns are facing this crisis. This is another level of the crisis which I only touched on, but we are already in a state of crisis in many country towns and heading towards this way here. Not that I've as well versed in the situation as you all would be, but I do believe, I mean, Taree has had to go into level 4 already. And I mean, that's the way it's going to have to be, isn't it? I mean, I heard Melinda Pavey is putting millions into water infrastructure, which is wonderful, but I do wonder, you know, if the horse isn't bolted, what's the use of certain kinds of infrastructure if we don't have water? And, you know, the forecast is not till next year sometime. I've heard February, March, April. But there's no guarantee then. There's no guarantee now. It's all unpredictable, unprecedented.
Another question, Madam?
Yes, Councillor.
Again, thank you for that, Nana. Yes, it is a complicated issue. Has your group at all discussed the idea that has been put out that the Upper Macleay should have a dam on it to make surety of water supply to the whole of the valley?
Our group hasn't. I'm sure another group I'm a member of, Save Our Macleay River, hasn't either, and I'm sure they would have an opinion on that. Maybe that's something for the future.
Thank you very much.
Think about.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nona. And that concludes our public forum for today. So thank you everyone for coming, and we will resume another public forum the night before the next council meeting. Thank you.